Let's not even try to gloss over things. That was an absolute debacle in Norman, Oklahoma. We're going to talk about Michigan's loss to the Sooners on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Thank you to all of our everydayers, those who listen every single day, and thank you for making us your first listen. We're obviously going to get into all things Michigan, Oklahoma. What was really bad, what was kind of bad, and then what was moderately okay. I don't know what order we're going to do that in. It's just going to kind of come to me in terms of, because we got a lot to get into. So that's the plan for the day. So let's start off with the obvious. Michigan absolutely got destroyed on both lines. The offensive line is just, let me put it, actually back things up for a second. They are who we thought they were. Offensive line, wide receiver. Right? Like, let's also be clear. Could it have been different if you were a little bit closer to full strength? When you lose the leading pass catching target, that makes it so you can get quick game to kind of go. Kind of neutralize a little bit of the aggressiveness. And you don't have him, Marlon Klein. That obviously changes a lot of the game, number one. But I will also offer you the caveat. If you have to rely as heavily on one guy that isn't a quarterback to be that guy, especially like not a quarterback, not a running back, heck, I'll even go like not a lockdown corner or not a, not a stud edge rusher, then you've already got way too many problems because you need to be able to have something more than that, right? And, Michigan found ways to do what it did last year with Davis Warren at quarterback and no Colston Loveland in the two most important games of the year, Ohio State and Alabama. This game, however, Michigan looked better against Texas in a lot of ways last year, but at the same time, there were some things that I thought Michigan did better than Texas against Oklahoma on the road. We'll save those for a bit. But, I mean, to see both lines get absolutely stuffed the way they did. Defensive line did a heck of a lot better than the offensive line. So let's start with the offensive line because, I mean, that was just an absolute debacle. Weirdly, if there was anyone that I would have to say, like, played the best, it might be Evan Link. I haven't looked at the grades, but, and I haven't rewatched the game, just kind of going off of what I saw through my lens. Brady Norton was an absolute disaster all game. I'm not sure that, like Giovanni Alhadi, I didn't notice anything glaring early on for him before his injury. But, Nathan Afobe, I thought, did kind of the best he could in that situation. So that's good. I did not feel like Greg Crippen or Brady Norton played well at all. I noticed some problems from Andrew Sprague. I mean, everyone had issues at some point. And Sharon Moore said today, and I wasn't there, I'm feeling kind of like garbage after my absolutely stupidly planned travel schedule, which also went awry. I feel like, Sharon said it's a consistency thing. Okay, so you've got that. That's a consistency thing. And I think that's somewhat true, but it's almost like, and I feel bad making this comparison. It's like you've got 5 Nolan Ulizios. Why do I say that? 2017, Michigan was bad on the offensive line. And in large part, it was due to Nolan Ulizio, who was a turnstile at right tackle. Once they finally moved on from that experiment, suddenly things became better. And the line started being better. So I kind of almost feel like it's that, but it's kind of all the way across to some degree. Again, I think Eladi, from what we've seen so far, has been good. Sprague has probably been the second best behind that, and Link hasn't been terrible like last year, but it's just not been very good. And I agree with Sherrone Moore, although I do think he's sugarcoating it a little bit, that it's not been consistent. I think that's true, but I think that it kind of goes beyond that. So you've got that, which accounted for so many of the problems. Because defensively, it didn't go well, but the defense still did enough to keep Michigan within the ball game here. The ball. Keep Michigan within the ball. And we'll just end it there. I think that defensively, they gave up 24 points. And they gave up pretty much every third down. Again, this was very reminiscent of Texas without it being the Texas game plan, right? Instead of just the delayed screens and things of that nature, it was a heck of a lot more of just John Mateer making things happen. And Wink did, I think, a really masterful job when they were unable to get a lot of pressure up front of scheming pressure. But then you just had guys that were so close to getting home and then taking a U-turn and going somewhere else. It just felt like that type of thing, right? And so many times you could look and say, man, if that guy just would have stayed in his position, and guys that you don't expect to leave their position. I saw a couple of times where Ernest Hausman got himself out of position. And if he just did his job and stayed in his gap, then, I'm talking about the touchdown play right before the half, I think. And if you just stay in that position, you got him wrapped up. But he abdicated his gap, and at that point, there was a clear lane to get into the end zone. I think that's the same play that I'm thinking of. Don't hold me to that. But there's just so much that the defense felt like, man, it is right there. I am shocked that they weren't able to do more against the Oklahoma offensive line, given kind of what we saw of them in week one. But I'm not even going to say I'm going to say but. I'm not very concerned defensively. I am on high alert offensively because you have a mix of an offensive line that is at the very best inconsistent and at worst just flat out bad. You can't run, if it's 3rd and 3, you don't even feel confident that they can run for it, which is just a shocking change of events from the past, 3.5-ish years. Obviously, last year had its problems too. The play calling was abysmal on offense. Now, I do have on good merit from someone who would know that there seems to be a bit of an identity crisis within the building, which is not great. That this wasn't necessarily the Chip Lindsey game plan, the Chip Lindsey offense, but that poses other wider systemic issues. It doesn't necessarily make you feel any better because it's okay, then what are we doing here? And that's going to get me because we've got way too much time way too many things to say and not enough time. Get my brain working here. So we'll move on. We'll continue on with the kind of the thought process I was going with. We're going to do that here in just a moment. But before we do, when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, you get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind spot covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters, and their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and dedicated support lines. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, we're going to continue on here in just a moment. But before we do, college football is back. And I was so excited until, week 2 happened. The tailgates, the rivalries, energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets could feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Pulled up Game Time, Just a few taps, you can find all kinds of amazing deals. I mean, you can go to Michigan, Central Michigan, and you're going to pay a fraction of what you would expect otherwise. Thing is, the app makes it super simple. You can even see the exact view from your seat before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right. Big shout out to, I can't remember everybody I met. I'll take the names that I can remember offhand. Big shout out to Zeke and Bill. They're in enemy territory in Ohio. It was great talking with you both. But so many people I ran into out there in Norman. I have to say that's a top-notch experience going to Norman, Oklahoma. I've never had more fun. I'd have to honestly say anywhere when it comes to the game day experience. Yes, that includes Ann Arbor. Now, I've been to a heck of a lot more Ann Arbor experiences than anywhere, but just everything with the way Norman was set up, from the on-campus tailgating to the downtown being shut down, it felt like you were at a bowl game in so many ways, but it's just Norman game day. And everyone was so friendly and incredible. I was running into people I haven't seen in decades somehow. I don't know how that's worked. I mean, it was top. Everything about that experience was top notch. And weirdly, as much as I used to think that Oklahoma would be a really good fit for the Big Ten, well before true expansion happened, man, it felt like an SEC school in all the best ways. And I mean, it was just an absolute blast. Thank you to everyone who made it an absolute blast. But everyone was so friendly and nice. It was incredible. I mean, like, just to give you one example before I move on, just like, so pull up into the parking lot, Canada Mike, Ben Satisfizer, and Shane, and my colleague Matthew and I get out of the car, and Canada Mike asks somebody where they could, hey, where can I go and buy some beer? And the guy's like ready to take beer out of his cooler. He's like, well, this is all I got, but take what you need. And it's like, no, that's not what we're saying. That was the experience you got the entire time. It was like, oh, here's what I have. You can have it if you want. Is just unbelievable. Okay. Let's see. Where did we leave off? There's so much bad. Michigan didn't have an identity in any way, shape, or form offensively. Not even a little bit. I would call that hubris in so many ways, because I think they thought our identity is we have Bryce Underwood and you don't. But then they don't utilize Bryce in a way that makes any kind of sense. And you can still see, and all the talent. This is the one thing that I'm going to mention in the next segment, but this loss is nowhere on Bryce Underwood. I see some of the rival fans being like, oh, 9 of 24. And it's like, yes, that's accurate, but was that on Bryce? No. I think Michigan did poorly despite Bryce, because they didn't put Bryce in a very good position to succeed in any way, shape, or form. Right? Sharon Moore says, yeah, we got to have, said today, you got to have 2 quarterbacks if you're going to run the football. Oklahoma didn't have that. John Mateer ran the ball 18 times for 84 yards? Something like that. They were very unconcerned about that. And that's the thing, is it just felt like Michigan was playing scared the whole time. Like, it had no discernible game plan. I could not tell you what they thought they were doing outside of the first play. It was cool. Second play, or first play of the second half rather. You could see at least well, we're going to go jumbo and we're going to find ways to beat them up front, no matter what. And then they kind of get away from it, where it feels like Michigan compared to Oklahoma, we got to trick them. Oklahoma didn't try to trick Michigan. Yeah, it might have gotten a little tricksy within the confines of its offense. Michigan felt like it was doing too much way too early and way too much. And it was so far outside of the confines of the offense that it was predictable. Oklahoma can look at the formation and be like, there's something going on here and it's going to be horizontal. So we just need to cover that, right? Michigan seemed to not have any way to punish Oklahoma in any way, shape, or form. And at times it felt like it wasn't just that they couldn't, they just wouldn't. Loaded boxes all game long. Michigan's like, we're going to run right into that bad boy. That's hubris. And that's problematic. Now, I'm not in the place where I think there's probably a lot of you. It's probably not the majority of you. But I know there was a lot of you that are like, I don't know about the Sharon Moore business. Listen, I'm not there yet. If you want to be there, that's on you. I think it's way too early, right? Because, yeah, you got some pieces that should be working. They did, like, he maybe could have controlled a little bit of the injury stuff through some kind of, like, just, I don't know. I don't want to blame strength and conditioning, but there was a lot of injuries for having played just one game going into this. And a lot of guys who were injured that were not injured whatsoever in gameplay. So that you got to kind of wonder, like, what happened there. But I mean, still, there's a lot of injuries. We don't know how they happened and everything. That's not ideal. But we're talking about a guy going on the road with a true freshman, a heck ton of injuries, and playing a ranked team in one of the most storied, hallowed places in college football. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you, like, the experiment's over, shut it down, right? This time last year, everyone was pretty upset. Everyone gave a little bit more grace. It's the second game. It's Davis Warren at quarterback. But definitely got beat more by Texas. Like, there's no escaping that. And then yet they still end up finishing the season by beating Ohio State and Alabama. So you've got to figure things out, and you don't really have time to. And the thing is like I said all along, they have to be able to be a road team. And they did not come out with juice. The only one that I felt like was like really like ready and raring to go was Bryce Underwood in pregame warmups. He's the only one I looked at and said, that guy's got some fire in his belly right now. And the rest of the team looked kind of listless. And it reminded me of what it looked like going into Wisconsin in 2019. Like, can we just go ahead and get our drubbing? Can we get this over with right now? We've got a flight to catch. That's kind of how it felt. So they've got to find ways to dig a lot deeper. Now, the lines are issues, or more so the offensive line. I think that they will be fine defensively. Not going to say for the rest of the season, but like I feel like, okay, that's going to work itself out. I have a heck of a lot more trust and faith in what's happening on that side of the ball. But Michigan's got to stop playing scared. They've got to start finding ways to have levels on offense. Because that's, I think, one of the big things outside of the line is they don't have levels to it. I'm not talking like metaphorically here. I'm talking like literally, like you have to find ways to attack downfield, intermediate, short, and horizontally. And right now, it doesn't feel like they have any way of doing anything. Except for just the occasional, all of it. Like, and when I say occasional, that's what it was. 9 receptions. It was very occasional. And with that, they need to look at and say, hey, there's a loaded box here. How can we attack a loaded box instead of just feeding into exactly the thing that it is designed to do? Stop the run. That's where I've got some massive issues. They've got to get better up front. They've got to be more consistent in the run game if you're going to try to do anything with Bryce Underwood. And if you're going to try to do anything with Bryce Underwood, he's got to be able to, you got to utilize his ability to use his legs and his arm. You can't just be doing all of this underneath stuff, hitches and I think checkdowns aren't generally the plan, but you got to find ways to make some things happen. Now, they schemed some things open here and there. And Bryce wasn't able to see it because the offensive line was so abysmal. Or he's used to having the timing with a Marlon Klein and not a Zach Marshall. No offense to Zach Marshall. But like, that's a touchdown if it's Marlon Klein. It's Samaj running wide open on a play, and he had to hit his check down because he had pressure in his face. Not much you're going to be able to do with that. So Michigan's got to figure some things out. Let's talk more about Underwood in his day. Let's do that here in just a moment. But before we do, quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, whatever that is. Don't know. Who's Michigan's biggest rival? Central Michigan this week. That's right. What hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said that. For me, it would be the game. These are just hats of the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use the code LOCKEDON, you'll get your vintage hat for $16.99. That's it. Head to thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic, bar, or retro circle design and use the code LOCKEDON for an exclusive discount because legends wear the game. All right, I number one, before I even get into Bryce Underwood, what I think is crazy, and I mean crazy, and I don't just mean like, man, that's crazy. I mean like psychotic. So clip this J-Book if you'd like. But the fact that I even say that and know that you probably will tells me exactly how psychotic you people are. Is all of the stuff coming from the rivalry ethos and be like, oh, it's a rivalry. What do you expect? For you to pay a little bit more attention to your own team and not like have big think pieces on what happened with Michigan. This doesn't happen the other way, right? We're not all sitting here analyzing what your game against Texas, Ohio State, media and fans. We're not. We watched it. We have some thoughts. We're not putting pen to paper. If you lost that game, the same stuff's happening. But like, I'm seeing articles written about like as if like 11 Warriors is at the Schembechler Hall for the press conference covering it and writing that Biff Poggi is going to be filling in for Sherrone Moore for the next 2 weeks. That's not relevant to you nor your interests. And for anyone who says it is, like, it's psychotic. You guys, you gotta, like Nick Saban said, you gotta freaking move on a little bit. It's insane seeing like just the rhetoric that comes out of your side of it. Heck, the last show we had was Thursday because I got so significantly delayed trying to get into Oklahoma City that we weren't able to do the Friday show that we planned to. And just simply by being like, hey, Connor's on this show, it like triggered an entire fan base. It like the things that came out, just read the comments. There's not a ton because I've blocked so many Buckeyes, but just read the comments and see what some of them have to say. It's unhinged. Like, you guys need to get a grip on reality and over your idolatry and just like, because this can't be enjoying, like, you can't be enjoying this. This can't be fun for you. PSA over. The J-Book, like, let's see, can I give you some timestamps? Will that help out? We're ending at 23 minutes and 14 seconds. So just to help you out your timestamps, you can find the beginning and then I just gave you the end point. All right. Bryce Underwood was not the problem on Saturday. And in fact, I thought he was about as close to a bright spot as you could find. Wink Martindale and his adjustments I thought were very good too. Again, I don't think the defense played horrible. I mean, they did hold a team that was able to seemingly move the ball quite often to 24 points. Some of that was self-imposed on Oklahoma, but I mean, a lot of it was Wink. But Bryce, I thought, like, I get it, right? There was a lot of talk coming out of, from this show too, from me. We had Connor on, we've had Jack on. There's a lot of talk on the show about what Bryce is capable of and who he might be and everything. I think a lot of that went out the window this week. And I saw one person who's supposedly a Michigan fan that's like, what an idiot, you said he's where JJ is. Yeah, imagine what it would look like for JJ McCarthy if he didn't have any time in the pocket and no receivers to throw to. Or tight ends, for that matter. Regardless of what you think, an extremely good defense in a Brent Venables coached Oklahoma in the SEC. Like, you can't act like that was who they're seeing this upcoming week or who it was the week before, okay? Like, it's still it's still a very storied, good program. Will they finish high up in the SEC? I don't know, man. That schedule's brutal. But like, that's a team that if it was in the Big Ten we'd be talking about them in the same vein, obviously, as like at worst, like Penn State. I think that Oklahoma in its current state could drop itself into the Big Ten and probably, at least be in contention, if nothing else, going into like week 12 of 14 weeks. So let's be honest about what Oklahoma is. But I thought Bryce did about as much as he could within the confines of what he was asked to do. And yeah, there were some happy feet. There were some moments, but he still didn't turn the ball over. He almost never put the ball in harm's way. He still made mostly smart plays and the right decisions. These are the types of things you really wouldn't expect a freshman to do in a situation like this. So I have to give props to Bryce, because also it's like, who is he throwing to? There were times like McCauley made it a great catch, double coverage, on a ball that I think was actually slightly underthrown by Bryce. But excellent play by McCauley. But there were other plays where like McCauley's jogging out of his break. And if he sprints, I'm talking about that first quarter play, if he sprints, that might be a touchdown. But he's jogging. I guarantee you don't ever see Ohio State players jogging out of their breaks. There's just a lot of stuff like that is just, what are you doing? The receiving core has got to be better. You can call Shannon Goodwin Mr. Reliable all you want, but then if he's just non-existent in a game like this, then who cares? Why is he starting then? And now you need the line to play better to give time, but like the receivers got to be able to do a little something more than they're doing too. Because right now, like there is no Roman Wilson or Cornelius Johnson, and I don't even think that should be the standard for Michigan, especially if you have a Bryce Underwood. The offensive line is where it starts and ends. They've got to be better. It just can't. The offensive play calling, whatever that was a debacle, and you've got to find a way to be better. Do not waste the best talent you've had at quarterback. Michigan did not lose because of Bryce. Bryce, there's no Herculean effort that Bryce could have done in the confines of what was called and what other Michigan players did that could have saved Michigan. Nothing. Like he can't block for himself. He can call his own number and do something different than what's being tasked of him, but that's probably not smart for a freshman against a Brent Venables defense. But I agree with what Sharon said, is he looked like composed and poised no matter what the circumstances were, despite the fact he was running for his life all game. So hat tip to Bryce. I know that rival fans aren't going to see it that way because they don't understand what their eyeballs are looking at, and they just see red, but they don't see red. But it makes no sense to me. Anyhow, all right, that's going to do it for us today. We'll do a mailbag tomorrow. That's going to be weird, but we're doing it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.